wanted to jump in live versus setting up a podcast because certainly I didn't plan one and talk about Fernando Tatis and this terrible, terrible news about this suspension. You know, I can't understand, nor can any of you, the pressures of being a professional athlete. I've talked to many guys who have had their careers ruined because they dealt with injuries and couldn't come back, rehabilitate as quickly as they would have liked, and who played in an era where many players were using steroids for that rehabilitation and to recoup and to get back out on the field. I don't want to sit there and speculate, but it's hard not to when you think about the injuries from Tatis Jr. And I go back to when it looked like, this guy had been broken in half, and then all of a sudden, going back 2 years, he was coming back way earlier than anybody thought. And there's only so much that a body, no matter what age, can be taxed. You're sitting there and you're watching your team play without you. You know, obviously, that you're losing dollars in terms of watching other players, the Otanis of the world, the Juan Sotos, who's now his teammate. And by the way, not a shock now, is it, why the Padres went so hard for Soto? Clearly, they knew this was coming. And by the way, for anybody who believes otherwise, these things are always out there to the teams way before we know it. They're out there to the player way before. They know it's coming. They understand the process is happening. I don't want to speculate whether or not this was a situation where Fernando Tatis Jr. used something to rehabilitate from an injury, because I don't know. A cluster ball or whatever it's called, I could sit there and read a definition to you, and I'm sure a lot of people will and put out on Twitter, and I'm sure it enjoys long walks on the beach and only goes out on Friday. I have no idea what the hell it is, all right? But I know this. We've got all these athletes, and I go back to the JT Realmutos and the Whit Merrifields, who I don't want to put anything in my body that I don't know what it is. A lot of us are sitting there and have put things in our bodies we don't know what they are. But you know why the whole idea of I didn't know what was in it, if that's what we're going to hear here? Because look, that's what we hear all the time. We hear some apology that's like, I'm sorry to the organization, and we haven't gotten one yet, so maybe out while I'm doing this live, because he's been preparing for this to happen, so he knows. Maybe it's going to be, hey, I'm sorry that this occurred. I apologize to everybody in the organization. I can't wait to get back on the field and prove to the fans that yada, 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 right? Or I didn't know it was in my body, or, I didn't realize what was happening. This is not punch at a frat house. But you know what the difference is between me and you and an athlete who is in this spot who says this? We don't have it tied to millions upon millions of dollars. We don't have it tied to our career. We don't have it tied to, forget just the players, hundreds of people and thousands who work in an organization, and the thousands to millions of fans who we're responsible for our brand and who we are. We don't have that, most of us, right? So it's like you make the mistake, you put something in your own body, that's a mistake for yourself or for your family or for your friends. It's not a mistake for everybody else. This is a disaster. It's embarrassing for Fernando Tatis Jr. himself. It's embarrassing to the Padres organization. It's embarrassing to human element that anybody would sit there at that age with what's in front of this kid's life and have any reason whatsoever, I don't care what the pressures are, what the injury is, and it's easy to say from where we sit, to do any of this. It's destructive to everything you want to believe in. Yeah, how many times have we been through the scenario where it's like, I can't believe in this player anymore? Ryan Braun, Robinson Cano, and the list goes on and on and on. It takes away the ability for a fan from this point forward to enjoy what Tatis Jr. is. And I don't care what any of you say or what anyone says, because when you cut all the BS, no one is ever going to look at this dude the same ever again, assuming we don't have this come out and say, oh, well, you don't know, like the doctor prescribed it, and it was a team doctor. Look, and maybe this comes out that this is something that we can explain. 99.9% of the time, no matter what an athlete says, you can't explain it. And at the end of the day, it comes down to, you're going to look at this dude, and so am I, differently for the rest of his career. Because if you do it once, you could do it again. Leopards don't change their spots, and I can go on with a list of cliches that we all know about human beings. You know, doesn't mean you don't give a second chance that he can't learn from it. Maybe he'll give a great apology. Maybe he will learn from it. But no one will ever look at him the same. When you look at the category and the top element of the Trouts and the Otanis and the Sotos and the Acuñas and whoever you have, Mookie Betts in that top group, right? I'm just shouting at names, but those may be with Tatis Jr. Maybe those are the top 6 you have in some order, right? Generational talents, the top of the game. You're not going to look at this dude the same. He's now in a different category. That's what he just took himself out of. Is it worth that to jump back on the field? No, no matter what the pressures are. Is that easy for me to say from the outside? It is. It is. It is. But I don't want to hear you didn't know what's in your body, because when it is tied to the amount of money that you're tied to, you know, you're not eating cereal until you know what's in the back of that box on Lucky Charms. All right? You're not, what, 2% milk? What's that going to do for me versus whole milk? You're not doing anything when it's tied to that. Neither would we. We can't speak to that because we got no idea. But I know that much. You tie it to teammates, money, livelihood, family, friends. You can't make mistakes, people. It's a disgrace. See, this is where we don't remember, because we're in this hot take nonsense and this BS in this industry that I work in, and I love what I do. Where, you know, we could sit there and you got people who get on the dude because he swung 3-0, including his own manager at the time, who's now clearly not managing for a lot of reasons, but that's one of them. That mentality. That decision is crazy. You swing 3-0 all you want in life. You got an open shot, you take it. But this, nope. Now you're off my board. You're out of my circle of trust. Now you're Jack Burns and you outside the circle, Fernando. It's terrible for the game. It's terrible for the Padres. Terrible for that kid. Look, as kids, we all did a lot of dumb stuff in our 20s, all right? All of us. But you got enough of a support system when you're Fernando Tatis Jr. that somebody got to be in your ear that's giving you enough of the right for you to not go to the wrong. Whoever was involved in getting this to you, or why, or who offered it to you. Or, by the way, let's think about real life we don't discuss. Who did it before and said, hey, this worked for me that we don't know about? Welcome to reality, people. Wake the hell up. He didn't just Google and look up cluster ball, whatever it's called, under C, and say, this looks good, and then go online and find a website to order it. Who's the dude who's in the room or that he knows in the league who used it and got away with it that we don't even know about? That we don't even know about. People still trying to get ahead. People still trying to get that extra edge. It's terrible for the game of baseball. When it's a name like this especially, it's terrible for the game of baseball. It's a black eye for everybody who wants to forget that this crap even ever happened and act like it's in the past. It ain't in the past, because you know what's not in the past? People trying to cheat. People trying to get ahead in life. That's not in the past. That's in the present for humans. To the present for athletes too. And now the big present and gift given to a Padres fan is not seeing Tatis and Soto play together like they all dream for the rest of the season. Or the beginning of next year. What a crock. It's an absolute freaking joke.